Hello and welcome to part 4 of the S9478 sew along. We are getting closer and closer to finishing, and where I left you off in last video is that we finished sewing the cups to the frame out of the channeling. Now for this step, we are going to sew the decorative or the regular picot elastic along the side cup all the way to this back band, as well as the bottom of the bralette, all the way across. So from one strap point to one strap point. We are going to sew that all, we're only going to sew one pass. Now what's key about this step is that when you sew past the cup, right here, this wire seam line, you are going to fold this out of the way. You do not want to stitch this down. So it might be easier if you pin this down on the outside so that you don't sew over this. Okay, so I've sewed the first pass of the picot elastic along the underarm, all the way to the back band, along the bottom edge. Now, per the instructions, this edge right here is also finished with picot elastic at the edge of the vertical edge of the back band. Since writing the instructions, making it several times, I found a much easier way as well as more supportive way, strap placement. So I'm going to do that for this sew along. I don't want to teach instructions just for the sake of teaching the instructions. I want to show you something that is super supportive and give you the best options available. So leave this edge raw for right now, as well as this edge right here. This is going to be where your hook and eye goes. And I am going to, also I wanted to note is that when I did the, when I sewed the elastic on the bottom edge, you see that my stitching went right below that channeling. So I'm gonna turn this back and I'm going to sew this second pass. And we're gonna encase that channeling inside the elastic. We aren't putting in the boning yet, that is the next step. Also, if you have this kit, there's gonna be a lot of thread changes. So my suggestion is I'm gonna turn it back and sew all the blue parts. Back stitching, which you usually don't do with a zigzag, at the start and stop, at the beginning and end, here and here. Then I'm gonna change my thread to beige on top. And I'm gonna sew this portion, the other arm, and then this portion as well, so that there's beige stitching and not blue stitching on this part. Oh, also, is that when you're sewing this second pass, you also want to trim back your channeling at the underarm and encase it inside the elastic as well. If you have a shallow demi underwire that you're using, you don't insert it at this point yet. Not yet. See, I'll turn that back and then I will turn that back and it'll be finished in there. so I have sewed the picot elastic at the bottom of the bra, as well as along the side cup and the top of the back band. The next step is we are going to finish the channeling or the wire seam line. Now, you can, if you want to, sew another stitch all the way across if you want to. You could also just tack it here, and it's already tacked in here, and it will stay in shape. That's what I like to call a floating underwire channeling, because when you're sewing an underwire channeling on, let's say, a classic bra, and it's really like U-shaped, it's so hard to get that top stitching nice and neat. That I actually will just tack it at the underarm, at the center front, and at the bottom of the cup seam, so that I don't have that second line of stitching. And it's just a nicer, cleaner finish. But I will leave it up to you to make that decision. So at this point is when we put in the boning. Boom. So you want it to be, since you're tacking it down, you want it to be from the top edge or the bottom edge of the channeling to the top edge of the picot elastic. I'm going to cut it just a hair shorter, just to give a little bit of wiggle room inside there. Now, if you got one of the demi underwires, this is the point at which you would insert them into the channeling, just the same way that I insert the boning into this channeling. And now I'm going to tack it down. And if you have any trouble tacking it, I would suggest giving it a nice press, giving it steam and pressing it. You also want to make sure that when you're sewing this part, that you're not hitting the underwire or the V wire. So you just want to like press it and just make sure that your V underwire is underneath the channeling. Okay, so I tacked my channeling down, and now I am going to cut the channeling so that it is really flush with that edge, that center front edge. You could do it like a hair inside too if you want. And then you can put in some, like, if you have some fray check, you can put that in it so that it doesn't fray. It usually doesn't. But if you want to, you can. You can also put some clear nail polish on the edge, which will help from fraying. Okay, so that is the end of part 4. Let's move on to part 5 and finish up your S9478.